Drama around U.S. Steel continuing, but today's news actually sending the shares higher by nearly 6%. The company previously threatening to shutter multiple mills if the Biden administration prevents its takeover by Nippon Steel. However, Cleveland-Cliffs is stepping in, saying it'll buy those mills if the White House blocks the deal. This problem for U.S. Steel won't end in November. Vice President Harris says she wants U.S. Steel to remain American-owned and operated. And former President Trump says he'll block the deal if elected. Joining us now to discuss, Carlos Gutierrez is former Commerce Secretary under President George W. Bush, and Gary Locke is former Commerce Secretary under President Obama. Gentlemen, welcome to you both, and really appreciate you making the time.
Thank you.
It's a complex issue, and one. Sometimes I wonder if its name were something other than U.S. Steel, if this might even be a story. But Secretary Gutierrez, I'll let you go first. On the merits, should this deal be blocked?
No, I don't see the economic logic. I don't see the national security logic. There is a political logic in the sense that we are in an election year. United Steelworkers have come out against the deal. And I don't understand that either, because without the deal, this will be devastating to the company and to workers. So I think it's a very bad idea. I think it's bad policy.
Do you, though, acknowledge that there's probably been plenty of precedents people are worried about where a foreign company takes over an American one, jobs are lost, factories are shuttered, moved to Mexico, et cetera?
Well, it's interesting because the purpose of tariffs is to tell companies overseas, look, we don't want you to export and dump. Come and invest in our country. And that's what they're trying to do. That's what tariffs are meant to do. 2 out of the 4 large competitors in the U.S. have headquarters in India. So it's not like this is something new. We're thinking about steel as if we were in the 1950s. It reminds me of The Godfather 2, when Hyman Roth said, we're bigger than U.S. Steel. That was the 1950s. It's just not, there's no logic to it. I think it's very unfortunate. And it sends a terrible message to our trading partners, our allies.
Ambassador Locke, I was thinking about car production. Companies like Toyota, Japanese example, to pick one, who have plenty of factories and facilities in the U.S. In fact, a lot of foreign car makers are some of the biggest employers. Even Airbus, the plane maker, has major operations in the U.S. So there's plenty of precedent for a foreign-owned company to have major American operations and employ lots of people, is there not?
Oh, for sure. And so many of these foreign companies now are establishing manufacturing facilities in the United States to be closer to the customers, cut down on transportation costs, et cetera. I agree with Secretary Gutierrez that the claim of concern about national security is pretty tenuous. The administration, under this thing called CFIUS, is able to block foreign takeovers, purchases of U.S. companies on the grounds of national security. Or if the company is being purchased by an entity located in a country that's somewhat adverse to the United States, whether it's China or Russia and so forth. But here, U.S. Steel is in very bad financial shape, and Nippon Steel has proposed to invest billions of dollars to keep many of these factories open that otherwise would close and maintain U.S. jobs. There is a concern about the unions, the United Steelworkers. They're concerned that they're afraid that Nippon Steel might close down some of the facilities where there are unionized workers because U.S. Steel uses 2 types of methods to produce steel, using iron ore, the big blast furnaces, or furnaces that actually use electricity to reuse steel, almost like scrap steel. And Nippon Steel probably would want to increase the use of those non-big furnaces, the non-unionized factories, and that's of concern to the iron workers. And perhaps with all this opposition to the sale, perhaps that will give an incentive for Nippon Steel to provide greater guarantees that these facilities with union workers will not be closed down. And perhaps if the union then agrees to the deal, then the politicians will give the green light.
Or maybe, Secretary Gutierrez, the workers sense exactly what you said, that the economics are moving towards these different kinds of mills using more recycled technology, and they wouldn't employ as many people as they had in the past. no matter what promises the company might make. I mean, we've all seen the promises and the guarantees. I think back to, whether it's deals with TikTok and Oracle. I mean, there are plenty of things happen in the heat of the moment that are more kind of politics than reality.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Secretary Locke, great to be on with you. What's going to happen will happen under U.S. Steel or anybody else. The company needs help. They have steel mills that were built in the 1930s, and we're competing, of course, with China with relatively new steel mills. So they need the money, they need the help, and without it, they're going to lose workers anyway. Without it, the company is in trouble. So we want to save this iconic U.S. company, U.S. Steel. I think this Nippon deal is probably the best way to do it.